So, to round out this session and prepare you for the meditations and the other exercises in the next sessions, we need to consider one last but crucial thing. To help yourself feel as happy as possible and to deal with the negativity bias of the brain, the first step is to have your own happiness matter. And for some of us, that is easier said than done, especially those of us who feel they do not deserve to be happy, as we discussed at the beginning of this program. Surprisingly, but poignantly, touchingly, one of the hardest things for most people is being on their own side. Now, of course, that doesn't mean being against others, but it does mean simply being for yourself. Being for yourself helps you stand up for what's important. And think about the effects that your actions today will have on your future self tomorrow and in all the years ahead, for better or for worse. For example, it's a general principle of ethics or morality that the people that we have the greatest power over are the ones that we have the greatest responsibility toward. Now, who in this world do you have the greatest power over? It's your future self. It's that being to whom you have the greatest responsibility. And that is certainly true for each one of us. Now, in the brain, being for yourself involves a few interesting things. For example, the overall view about the goodness, the rightness of being for yourself is generated within your frontal lobes. Second, when being for yourself has a kind of caring quality to it, a warm-hearted, tender, compassionate, loving feeling, that's probably associated with flows of the tend and befriend hormones, such as oxytocin and estrogen, which men have too. Third, there could also be some arousal of the sympathetic wing of your nervous system. That's the stress response wing for sure, and we got to be careful about it getting chronically overactive. But boy, it has its place, and it's really a good thing to tap when it's time to mobilize strength in terms of supporting ourselves, like standing up to something that's a big problem. And then last, in a kind of contented, balanced state of being on your own side, the parasympathetic wing of the nervous system is activated as well. It's the kind of rest and digest wing that balances the sympathetic wing of your nervous system. Of course, there's got to be wisdom in the ways we are on our own side. We can all think of many examples in the history of the world in which people were very much on their own side for things that had very bad consequences. We also need wisdom about not holding on too long to the things we are for if it's turning into a significant problem for ourselves or perhaps for others. When to hold them and when to fold them, it's a cliche for sure, but it points to one of the truly important questions in life. But truly, my personal experience, the issue for most of us is not an overly tenacious advocacy for ourselves. Being fully on a person's own side, steadfastly pursuing their own best interests, which of course always involves being virtuous, caring toward others, and mentally steady and wise, is actually more often the exception than the rule. If that's true for you in any way, please notice any resistance to being for yourself. Like maybe a subtle sense of futility or hopelessness, or a kind of exhaustion, weariness, or maybe a fear of a shaming attack if you stand up or stand out. There are lots of reasons for these sorts of things. For example, many of us were raised to feel that it was somehow vain or sinful or disloyal to others to value our own needs. And sometimes, in childhood or later, expression of how we really feel or what we really want provokes a shaming attack that shuts us down. As the Japanese proverb says, the nail that stands out gets hammered down. So So you might ask if you experienced yourself any hammering. And then, if your efforts were routinely thwarted or painful things happen to you that you can't prevent, it's natural to develop a kind of learned helplessness, which, as I mentioned earlier, studies have shown is very easy to learn, alas, and very hard to undo. Further, sometimes cultural influences in our upbringing, or even religious ones, make it harder for us to express ourselves or swing out toward our own best interests. For example, on the average, girls tend to be raised in ways that value tending to the needs of others ahead of themselves. To overcome these tendencies, to be for yourself, you need a fundamental orientation inside that treats your life as if it matters, as if your happiness is important, as if being mistreated is not all right, as if you deserve the same care and goodwill as any other person. Basically, you are taking a stand for yourself, for the meaning of what the poet Mary Oliver has called your one wild and precious life. It's as if on the day you were born, you were given a bag of pearls, one for each day you will ever have. Each day you spend one of those pearls, never to see it again. The supply in the bag is steadily dwindling, and one day there will be just 365 left. The most of us never know which day that is as we cross it. And then 10, and then 1, and then none. How will you spend those pearls? Will you spend them on the causes and conditions that will lead to your true happiness and that of others? Or will you spend them on things that don't make you truly happy? Deep down inside, each one of us usually knows the essence, the crux of what those causes and conditions are that will lead to true happiness, which is the deepest yearning of every person. What's your sense of that for yourself? The causes and conditions, especially the ones inside your own mind, not out there in your circumstances, your situation, your environment. The causes and conditions, especially in your own mind, that will lead to more well-being, contentment, and peace in your own life. May those causes and conditions grow for you to benefit you and those around you. And in the next 2 sessions, we will explore many great ways to help that happen. And to introduce those meditations to you, let's start with one now on happiness and gratitude.